So at the end of this month, the new film Godzilla King of the Monsters is being released in theaters. Not only that, but the reviews so far have been overwhelmingly positive. This adds to the hype, and it's looking like this movie is going to be an extremely fun and extremely entertaining ride and the epitome of a summer blockbuster.
They're everywhere. Battling for dominance. A rival alpha to Godzilla.
Godzilla has a very long and potentially confusing legacy, so if you're thinking that this new movie looks great and are curious to see it, but know practically nothing about Godzilla, where should you start? What should you be looking for? Where can you find the lyrics to the Mothra song? Well, I might not be able to answer all of these questions, but I think I can handle a good chunk of them. So let's get into a quick Godzilla 101 for newcomers. So first things first, what is Godzilla? Despite what he looks like on the surface, Godzilla is not a dinosaur or a dragon. He is a creature unto himself created by nuclear and atomic energy. Created by mankind and as a result of us tampering too much for control and power. Basically a metaphor for nature striking back at us and a personification of the fact that we will always be at the mercy of the natural world and we cannot control everything. The original first film, Godzilla, came out in 1954 and creatively was a direct result of the atomic bomb landing in Hiroshima. The destructive imagery in the film and the injured people from the attacks were displayed in a way that was very similar to the actual devastation in Japan not long prior. This very first Godzilla film kind of stands alone in that it's the most serious of all the movies, but it also really represents a specific place and time, and it really could have never come out in a different point in history and made as much of an impact as it did. Now, besides its origins, Godzilla can be classified as a kaiju, which roughly means giant monster, of which there is an entire genre, and Japan exploded with these films not long after. Godzilla, Mothra, Rodan, Gamera, War of the Gargantuas, even a giant Frankenstein. And just don't get me started on Ultraman. But we're not here to talk about any of those. This is just the basics for new Godzilla fans. So we know Godzilla's origins and his genre. What can he do? Well, Godzilla has several themes and cliches that are displayed in almost every film. Just how you expect to see all the Marvel characters use their powers in each movie, or your favorite band play their most popular hits, there are things we want to see in every Godzilla movie. One is Godzilla destroying shit. Yeah, that's gotta happen. Next, Godzilla is extremely powerful and virtually invincible against any man-made weapons. He destroys tanks, planes with ease, missiles do nothing, and his most devastating attack is his atomic breath. He breathes what looks like blue fire, but is actually a concentrated energy beam of atomic energy. And this will destroy virtually anything. And finally, ever since the first Godzilla sequel, we usually expect Godzilla to be facing an enemy. The giant monster battles are the bread and butter of the Godzilla franchise. Seeing two monsters smash into each other head to head is what every good Godzilla movie needs, with a few minor exceptions that pull off Godzilla being solo. So now that you know what Godzilla is and does, where do you start as far as the movies go? I mean, you only have 34 movies to choose from. No big deal. Okay, I'm going to be honest. If you've never seen a single Godzilla movie and you want to see King of the Monsters coming out the end of this month, just go see it. Let it be your first one, and here's why. Yes, the movie is a sequel to the 2014 Godzilla movie, but that movie was very divisive, and though I do like the movie, it doesn't give you enough bang for your buck in the Godzilla department, and definitely doesn't feel like a classic Toho movie either. I feel that film doesn't give you a good enough understanding of what these movies are all about. The sequel, however, looks like it completely understands the Toho films, and the director Michael Dougherty seems to really know his history when it comes to Godzilla. All of his interviews and conversations online that I've seen really point to him being a great pick as the director. Also, I'm sure this movie will recap anything from the 2014 movie that will be important, so just go see the new film. And if you like it, then you're in the perfect position to go back and enjoy the older movies if you find out this kaiju genre is your style. So when it comes to the Godzilla movies, you have a few different continuities to choose from. I'm going to give you a brief overview and then share my recommendations from each series. The first wave of Godzilla movies go from the original film in 1954 to 1975, and includes 15 movies. This series is known as the Showa era of films, named after that because of the years the movies came out and which emperor was in power in Japan at the time. These movies are all in the same series, but with very loose continuity. See, back in these times, just like before it with the Universal monsters, people didn't look at continuity in movies the way that they do now. There was no home video release, no internet, no people constantly analyzing and criticizing the movies from year to year. A movie would come out, a year would go by, and then another movie after that. So the Godzilla movies were whatever they needed to be, and if it contradicted something that came beforehand, it wasn't paid much attention to. Basically, the continuity only mattered when it needed to. These movies also devolve into being very wacky and weird over time. I know giant monsters are weird to begin with, but eventually there's just stuff like this. But 15 movies is a lot, and there are some that are certainly skippable, unless you're a hardcore fan. So here are my picks from the Showa era series. Of course, the original Godzilla. And try to make sure you watch the Japanese version. There's an American recut where they add in scenes and it's not really necessary. Criterion really put out a great Blu-ray release of this. I'd also recommend King Kong vs. Godzilla. It's a lot of fun, and just the idea of these two together is great. Also, there is a new Kong vs. Godzilla coming out next year, so, might want to see the original. Godzilla vs. Mothra as well. It has a great storyline to go with the monster action, I feel. And Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, because this one basically is involving all the same monsters that are in the new movie, and would be a good one to see because it's basically the basis of the new stuff. And Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. Mechagodzilla is iconic, and this is still the best design and use of it in any movie thus far. So those are my picks, but if you really want to go wacky and weird, then go ahead and watch Godzilla vs. Megalon and Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster. You'll thank me later, maybe. The next series of Godzilla movies is called the Heisei series and has 7 films coming out in between 1984 and 1995. This is probably my favorite overall series as a complete entity. This starts a new continuity, and they are only using the original 1954 Godzilla as its leaping off point. Godzilla's design here is much darker and bulkier, and in turn more menacing. The continuity here is also much better from movie to movie than the original series, and actually uses a couple of characters from movie to movie as well. It all starts with Godzilla returning in another solo film reminiscent of the original, and ends with Godzilla on the brink of an explosion, basically becoming a walking atomic bomb. My recommendations from this series are the first one, Godzilla 1985, Godzilla vs. Biollante, a personal favorite of mine, and with a very cool enemy monster storyline and one that I really wish would make a comeback. Godzilla vs. Mothra again, this is the Heisei version, not associated with the original, and Godzilla vs. Destroya, which is the finale in the series. After that series was put to rest, the next Godzilla movie actually came from America, Roland Emmerich's Godzilla 1998. This is a standalone film that didn't have any sequels, and is a big controversy in the Godzilla fandom, mostly because, other than in name alone, it doesn't hit any of the criteria of a Godzilla film. The design is completely changed and makes Godzilla look more like a T-Rex, and given that Jurassic Park had just recently come out and was a huge blockbuster, and looking at the film from a distance, it's clear that they were basically just trying to make a Jurassic Park movie, and not a Godzilla movie. Godzilla doesn't have atomic breath. He's easily dispatched by man-made missiles and weapons, which is a big no-no to the character. However, having said all that, this movie is actually really fun. If you just ignore the fact that it's called Godzilla, it's just a really entertaining monster movie in its own right. Then we reach the third Toho series, called the Millennium series. This one has 6 films spanning from 1999 to 2004, and unlike the others, this series doesn't have a continuity at all. Each film in the Millennium series only uses the original Godzilla 1954 as its basis, and is a direct sequel to that movie alone, with the exception of Godzilla against Mechagodzilla and Godzilla Tokyo SOS, which is a 2-parter. Godzilla's design for this is one of my personal favorites, as he looks so menacing with the giant pointed spikes. Ones you want to watch out of this series are Godzilla 2000, and this long-ass title movie, Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All-Out Attack, or as most fans call it, GMK for convenience sake. And also Godzilla Final Wars, which is just a crazy, insane, monster free-for-all finale to the Millennium series. Godzilla would not be seen again on film for another 10 years, starting with the new and currently running American series being called Legendary's Monsterverse. It starts with Godzilla 2014, includes Kong Skull Island, and now Godzilla King of the Monsters, and to be released next year, Godzilla vs. Kong. There's also, in Japan, currently a new Godzilla series starting up, with one film released so far called Shin Godzilla. This is a weird one for sure, but I still recommend it. And where Toho is going to go after this, I'm not sure. But I like the idea of two Godzilla series running at once, an American one and a Japanese one. And if you want to count these, there is a final Godzilla series on Netflix in the form of 3 anime films. It's a trilogy that's completed, and all the movies are on the streaming service free to watch. I'm conflicted on these ones because, on the one hand, I really like the storyline they presented. They definitely go back to the mythic analogy for unstoppable power that Godzilla was originally designed for. But I really hate the animation. It's CGI anime, which I've always hated, and the characters look very bland, they move awkwardly, and it really takes me out of the film. I guess watch these ones if you want to get into the storyline, but the animation is crap. So there you have it, guys, a brief intro to Godzilla with some movie recommendations. So tell me what you think. Are you excited for the new film, and which of the older films would you personally recommend to newcomers? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.